me down. I tend to get a little into the weeds sometimes to make sure everyone understands exactly what we're talking about. So obviously we have a transportation network of roads that get us where we're going. Parking is what we do when we get there, so we can get out and do whatever it is we traveled there to go do. Downtown works a little differently than new development. Like if Walmart comes in, they build a new parking lot. Downtown is space limited. We only have so much space for parking. And we run into two big issues related to this. And one of them is limited parking, or controlled parking that only certain types of vehicles or certain individuals can use. The other is orientation of parking, which is that angled versus parallel, which we'll come back to that. We will start off here with the information on limited parking. In the last several months since I've joined the city, we've had a couple of issues arise pertaining to limited parking where business owners have expressed concerns, or building owners have expressed concerns about limited parking, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. Some of the zones did go away at the request of certain businesses, and that led other businesses to express concern that now they don't have parking because the limited parking, in particular here, the parking that was limited near DES was removed at DES's request. That caused some concern from the barbershop across the street that now he didn't have parking because DES employees would park there all day instead of that 2-hour maximum. The other one is the taxi situation down near First Street where the taxis are given a dedicated parking area in front of the building that was vacant when that happened, but that building is no longer vacant. That's causing friction between the taxis and the taxis and the building owner.
Mr. Mayor, this is the start. Not present, the time is 4:36.
Thank you. It occurs to me you can't see this presentation, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. Just going to use this as my notes. So the city suspended a number of its limited parking zones back in 2013, and for the most part that seems to have been a success. We're not getting too many complaints other than those two areas I talked about. The big issue where staff would like to clarify some things is who can declare these designated parking zones. There's a little bit of language in the city code that is slightly ambiguous, whether or not the city manager can do it of their own volition or the council should do it. And with the input of Mr. Flores, we've all decided we would err on the side of caution that the council should do it, but we would like to clarify that language so that no one in the future, those of the city manager who then, a future city manager who starts declaring limited parking or removing limited parking without input from the council, because it is a very broad issue and one that frankly does often become political. So while staff is here to provide technical assistance, it's not really our place to add or remove parking in that manner. So we will be looking at some guides, just making sure that the council is in concurrence that we should be clarifying this language, and the council would be the body that would like to have full authority over limited parking. Since we are looking at areas where someone could get a ticket if they were there too long, if they were not the right type of traffic. The third one in the tickets or the towing that the chief will back me up on this. It happens is that commercial parking only near the port, that we do see a lot of residential, personal traffic there, personal parking there. It does then cause problems because the trucks don't have anywhere to go. This does lead into some of the problems with limited parking. Anytime you displace one set of vehicles, they're going to go somewhere else, and sometimes that's not where you want them, which is why these do need to be broader policy discussions. At this point I've talked about a lot about limited parking. Have I made myself clear as mud? Any more clarification?
You're doing a great job.
Okay, thank you. I have been doing this for a while. You're just a new group, new audience. The other one that we'd like to talk about, both in terms of direction and long-term solutions, is parking in the downtown overlay district. Particularly on G Avenue, we notice we have parallel parking that then switches to angled parking as you head south. We've had concerns from a number of the business owners that there is not the correct parking in front of their business because the parallel parking does limit parking compared to angled parking.
Peter, can we borrow your copy to make a hard copy for all of them?
Absolutely.
Can you pull it up for you to do?
Absolutely.
Got it.
And actually, there's a part now that I really know most of it. There we go. So we've had our discussion of limited parking, and we have some nice maps of where the limited parking zones were. The red were ones that are no longer in use. The green is where you still have some form of limited parking, whether it's the commercial traffic only, whether it's the taxis. And this is what I talked about of the issues of who exactly has the right to designate that parking, and we do want to clarify in the code. Being a planner, we're really big on clarity, so we don't get these confusions going on later on. Who can do what? We like having it very clear, particularly when you're looking at something like this that will potentially impact people's finances if you start handing out tickets. And this is here I spoke of near DES, where the 2-hour parking was removed on part of the street and did cause concerns from the barber shop. This is the other issue that I'd like to address. Now we're going to start with the specific and then go to the general. Again, where we talk about the diagonal or angle parking versus the parallel parking. If we change the existing parallel parking into angle parking, it gives us almost twice as many parking spaces along those 3 blocks of G Avenue, which allows for, well, just in general, more parking spaces and also more handicap spaces. I notice we don't have a whole lot of those, and this lets us put them where they're most appropriate in terms of infrastructure, where it's easy to step up off the street onto the curb. They do make it a lot easier for people to get out of traffic onto the spot. They're a little tougher to get back out of, again, than parallel parking. Parallel parking, unless you're really tight, is really quick to get back out of because you're already pointed the right direction. You don't have to back out into traffic. Parallel parking also gives us more roadway traffic, which ordinarily is a good thing. That 2 lanes each way moves cars, and engineers like to move cars. Planners don't like to move cars, they like to move people. And downtown, once we slow traffic down by eliminating the lane and increasing the parking spaces, that encourages people to stop, park, get out of their car downtown, and then patronize businesses that they may not have seen before because they're going through there. It's a speed limit on the interior lane. They're not really looking so much for businesses. And folks like myself who don't live in Douglas but who come here regularly, even now I still notice new businesses every time I go downtown because I'm looking for them. But I do that because I'm a planner, that's what I do. But most people, you really kind of have to force them to do that. But once you get them out of their cars, they will see those additional businesses. So this is something that all but one of those downtown businesses have requested from us. There is one business that would like to keep the parallel parking for a variety of reasons. They find it easier in front of their business, particularly for loading and unloading of personal goods, of luggage, which kind of tells you who it is that would like to keep it the way it is. I can tell you from a technical point of view, I would prefer reverse angle parking, but that's probably a bridge too far at this point. Most of you probably never even seen that unless you're in a university in Tucson. But angle parking does have a lot of pros going for it. It's easier to get into. We're all pretty standard getting out of it without too much trouble. Parallel parking, we don't have a traffic volume here to justify needing the parallel parking versus the angle parking. The backing out is not really a big movement here. So eventually we will want some very specific direction on this. But the bigger, this is what I talked about, we had a general question, is how do we do this? How do we change parking downtown? We can do it piecemeal through both with the limited and the parallel versus angle through the municipal code, which is nice because it's fast. It's the agile option. I mean, as fast as anything can be at the city level. We can change parking on blocks pretty rapidly, and we can really readily do a block by block by block. The concern with block by block is sometimes when you look at the block and it's 3 blocks away, which I think has happened on some of the blocks that are parallel right now, while everything else 3 blocks away is angled. The flip side of this is to do it through the downtown revitalization plan, which will be coming forward in the next couple of months. This is nice because it's comprehensive, but it's more time intensive, and anytime we want to change it, we're changing a whole big comprehensive plan rather than going into the municipal code and dropping it very quickly in those particular areas that need it. So again, you've got strength versus agility on which one we prefer. Now, at this point, I feel like I've talked a lot, and so I'm hoping there's questions.
Council, do you have any questions for Mr. Gardner?
Well, I have one comment. You know, when we changed it, we had the angle parking forever. When we changed it, I wasn't, I didn't have this office at that time, but I like the angle parking much better. So that's my take on it. I need to maybe get it back. You might want to consider though the Gadsden for people coming in and out there,
Right.
and that would be my only thought.
And they've been the one business who's not enthusiastic about changing. They like to keep parallel parking.
Well, is that the only one?
That's the only one that I'm aware of.
Okay, that might make, common sense to do that.
Certainly.
Okay.
Mayor, if I can make a comment to that point, the Gadsden is our big attraction, right? I mean, at the same time, we don't want to hurt their business, but seeing that, I go through G Avenue when I come from the gym, and the complaints from a lot of the businesses, like the gyms, they don't have enough parking. We have a Blueberry Cafe. They don't have enough parking, and then they have elderly couples who have to park on the other side of the block, or on the where the dispatch is, just to walk over there for a cup of coffee. At the same time, as you mentioned, Mr. Gardner, we could do it through the revitalization plan, but what I fear is, are we hurting these businesses by waiting that long too? Because we can say, oh, it's only 4 months, but when businesses are losing money, that's not our money we're losing; it's their money that they're losing. So that's a concern that I have. If we could do it in a way to sort of ease into it, maybe if council has to make a decision on it for the ones that need it. And you mentioned handicap too. There's plenty of businesses that need the handicap parking. That's where I'm kind of torn. I don't want to rush into it where then we're sort of coming back in a few months and saying, well, we should have done it a certain way. But my concern is because a lot of these businesses are suffering because of the lack of parking. I'd like to get your expertise. What would be the sort of like the easiest way to go into it from a planner standpoint?
I would suggest doing it through the municipal code quickly, and then covering it again, large scale through the downtown redevelopment plan. One's a Band-Aid, but it gets the problem fixed until we can address it on a permanent level. One option, because I think I understand the Gadsden's concern, since we are really the elephant in the room, is loading and unloading. That's the biggest weakness of full and angled parking, is when you are loading and unloading, your back is to traffic, which can often be a concern. But if some of the spaces are left at a loading zone for the hotel rather than as parallel parking, it gets them what they're looking for, a place for people to load and unload in a more safe manner without having to mix angled parking on an entire block. Let them load or unload, then pull into a more compact parking space. That would be my recommendation. And again, something that we can do quickly, and we can bring forward as quickly as the next council meeting. We could have a plan to make the change before you.
And would it be possible, because I know one of their complaints about diagonal parking is the handicap, because they have handicap parking there. Is there some way where maybe the city can help them out? You're saying like the loading area, where maybe they can, if they have somebody like in a wheelchair, where we can accommodate them in that sidewalk. I don't know what you call them, the little slide, not a slide.
I understand what you mean. Making sure that loading zone is handicap accessible,
Yeah.
so we can definitely get people in and out of there quickly and safely. Absolutely, that would be a top priority, is making sure that there's accessible handicap parking. I believe on every block there should be at least one position where you don't have to park in the middle of the block, hike up onto a 12-inch curb, and walk to the end of the block, if at all possible.
Here, I got a couple of thoughts. In the Gadsden area, I understand completely what we could do there, and it all makes sense. In the rest of that area, the curbing is generally really high. And so my thought would be that if the cars come in and park, and they can't park, they'll put their bumper up there, and then they'll stick way up, and that would affect the traffic flow. And then the other time, not on every block, but on some of
Right.
the blocks downtown, you know, it's high curves, you know, for flooding.
Sure.
That's what we did. The other thing is, I'd like to see a traffic study from, you know, how much traffic is on north of 10th Street as opposed to south of 10th Street.
Okay, I don't have those numbers handy, but I believe those are already accessible, and if not, we can work, with one of our partners to get those wrapped.
Well, I'd like to look at that, and then I'd like to have, a survey maybe of all the businesses along that stretch as to what they would like.
Actually, well, I don't have it handy, I do actually have, courtesy of Mr. Alva, I have a signed petition from virtually every business other than the Gadsden requesting the annual parking.
Okay, and that includes north of 10th?
It is
Southern Auto.
currently parallel.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
there.
Southern Auto and things like that,
Right.
those businesses.
Oh, no, not far north.
Mayor, Mr. Lindeman, mind if so how this came about was, I was at the gym, and, I've heard complaints about, several businesses there. So, I brought up, just a suggestion of, what if you just get a petition? Because of the reluctancy of business owners, going and, so I passed around and I got all of their opinions. I said, if you agree with it, you can sign it. If you don't agree with it, you can always sign it also and then state the reasons why you don't agree with it. So we could have everybody's opinion because every business is different. Southern Arizona, they weren't for it, but they weren't against it. It was basically whatever you guys want to do, we're good with it. The consulate was for it. The American Legion, it didn't really bother them. They had a vote. I haven't gotten back to them, but they have their own parking space. Washington Federal has their own parking space. The Gadsden has their own parking space, but again, it's daily loading, because it's a hotel. The county building has their own parking space. One of the complaints that I think we do need to address because of this individual losing business is the DeVore Auto Supply. They have individuals either from Southern Arizona or from the gyms parking in front of their parking space, so they don't have a lot of room. So it would benefit them. There's also a lot there. I don't know if they've gotten back to the city, but they were going to get the owner of the lot next door to write a letter saying, because it's sort of like an entrance, so that they were okay with the city, making it into a sidewalk or so we could put more parking there also. But as far as those who are against it would be just the Gadsden as far as Mr. Lindeman's question. But I'd like to accommodate them. But as far as Southern Arizona, they just said, whatever you all do, we're fine with it. They're not for or against it.
Oh, one other thing, there are some vacant lots down there, probably not big enough to put a parking lot, but we should look into something like that and utilize the space. Maybe the city could buy those up or something and would put them to more use, whether it's a quick off-street little parking lot for the businesses that happen to be there, or maybe a side kind of park, that they have up in Bisbee, and somebody will go in there and sell ice cream or something. So I'd like to look at those things.
Absolutely.
But the traffic flow with parking, that's what I would like to look at.
Absolutely.
Mr. Yush, can we go back to limited parking real quick? I was unsure and I can't find it, I apologize. So our current municipal code allows changes, you mentioned some ambiguity and such like that?
It's unclear, here somewhere with a citation, and this was, I believe you said the language was the city manager may with the consent of council. That's always dangerous turf, once you get into language like this.
Okay, so in other words, we probably should operate until the council decides to change with what was done back in February of 2013.
Right.
With those exempted areas.
Right, we're not proposing changing any of the limited parking at this time. Those are taking a little more study to solve exactly the issues. The taxi one in particular, we're just sticking with it that we're looking at.
And this is a far-fetched idea, and I don't even know if it would work or not, but I'm wondering if I despise one-way streets because I always end up going the wrong way. But I'm wondering if maybe 11, 12, 13, I don't know, could be one-way streets, especially now that we're having some educational institutions moving to our downtown area. It puts pressure on parking down in those areas. I'm just wondering if then we could get some diagonal parking and maybe double what we have, make it one way and still be able to utilize it. I don't know.
The idea is on the table. I think we want some really, some more detailed traffic count and seeing that parking is completely overflowing before we got to that point. But the idea is not discounted. And that's something that would be preferentially addressed through the revitalization plan. This is updated by saying, look, downtown is booming. We need more parking. We're going to take the streets, as opposed to the avenues, take the streets, make them one way. Now we can double up parking on those streets.
Just a thought to maybe further that, because I think it's neat that we have, and it's happening in other places, the educational institutions coming in and getting in those old buildings and fixing them up and being a very important part to our downtown.
Excellent.
Any other comments? Mr. Gardner, thank you so much for the presentation. Just like Councilman Grijalva, I agree that we ought to accommodate some of these business owners on G Avenue as quickly as possible. So based on what I gathered from your presentation today, is that we can likely put something together by January to accommodate some of the parking issues on G Avenue. Is that correct?
That is correct. This could be a resolution, not an ordinance. Is that correct, Mr. Flores? Since no money is involved, simply no tax. I'm saying it incorrect. I like you say.
All right, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, from what I'm picking up is council's interested in reconfiguring some of the parallel parking to angled parking. That could be done by council action or resolution. There's no need for an ordinance from my perspective. I know you think that's ambiguous there on the screen, but it does say except as otherwise directed by this chapter, so that's why you gotta read the whole chapter but absolutely, so that's what we would need to do. Thank you, Mayor.
And Mr. Gardner?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. We have that prepared for you for the next meeting.
And
Mayor?
Mr. Mayor, I do have a question.
let me just finish this final thought, and then I'll say
That's fine.
So then, could we also start out like Councilman Grijalva suggested with, let's say we start at Blueberry Cafe along with that gym area and start seeing how.
Absolutely.
Very good. So then, after this discussion and after Mrs. Morales, then we'll see where the consensus of perhaps putting something together for January's council meeting. Councilman.
I just wanted to ask, I know that I do like the idea of the angle parking. What about the employees that work for those businesses? Do we know how many employees are actually parking in those spaces?
We do not. That's a very good question. That's something I can gather next week and talk to them. The beauty of the angle parking is it also doubles. It essentially doubles our parking spaces. So, but I understand your concern that if the employees are parking there, that may be the cause of the problem, and we could expect that they won't parking elsewhere.
So I know that's been brought up in the past that people can't find parking downtown because the employees are parking, taking up the spaces where potential customers could be parking.
And this is definitely, if businesses start filling in, we do it, or not yet, I'm optimistic. When businesses start infilling there, we start having more employees, this is where we may start running low on parking again and have to start looking at some one-way streets, as Mr. Hughes suggested.
Thank you.
Mayor? Well, that's where I'm thinking that we take those vacant lots in there and we quick stick some parking on there and make that for employees and get them off the street and out of the convenience of the shoppers.
We run a little bit into the issue of limited parking there, but it's certainly a good suggestion, and we can certainly figure out how to make it work.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Yoshi?
not to disagree too hardly with my colleague, but I'd much rather see something green there in any of those spaces that we may be able to get something artistic, green, et cetera, rather than 3 parking spots. But I think we also, as a community, maybe lose sight of, we all feel we want to park right in front of the door of the business we want to go into, and need to realize that, you know, as soon as we get to a bigger city, we don't mind walking 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 blocks, because that's the only parking that's available. So that's why I think we need to do a balance, is get us as close to the door as we can, but also realize that the door's still open. And even if we do have to walk another 300 feet, it's still open and we should still go in.
And just let me say that part of the downtown revitalization plan, some of the improvements that we bring forward as a design concept in the next few months are going to encourage people to park and walk. You don't have to park in front of one business, move 2 blocks down. We want you to park wherever you find parking, in the middle, at one end, wherever you want to park, and then walk both sides, up and down. The more you walk, the more businesses you patronize. You don't walk through the door of the business you drive past, but you walk through the door of the one you walk past.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Mr. Gardner. It looks like we would like to have that, and before I forget, if we do configure this new parking layout, I think that I strongly feel that we need to start promoting the speed limit on traffic there on G Avenue, and it's a great segue for Chief Floyd to chime in here. So, thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. We can certainly do that at that time. One additional consideration I wanted to offer to you all is with respect to enforcement on limited parking. If we want to consider continuing limited parking, such as 30-minute, 1 hour, or 2 hour, we may run into some obstacles with that. I know that Mr. Flores and I have discussed it briefly, that the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals recently ruled that the use of the chalk tire method was a Fourth Amendment infringement, which really limited our ability to chalk tires. Now, we're not under the Sixth Circuit, so it's not binding on us, but that's definitely something that could come across our path down the road. So, if we want to continue that, we may have some difficulty enforcing it.
Ray Reese.
It's the actual act of touching the car, I guess.
Very good. Any other comments from council?
If I may ask you, so let's say we wanted to enforce it. How do we enforce it, without getting into that Fourth Amendment territory?
Just off the top of my head, we're looking at public parking meters.
We used to have those.
We did, yes. And then the other last tidbit is when we moved to suspend the enforcement, our civilian parking enforcement position went away with that as well.
So. One last comment, Mayor, and members of council, if I may. I wasn't trying to be argumentative when I said that I don't feel the code is ambiguous, but it basically, if you were to ask me, the process for changing the parking downtown is exactly what administration is doing. They're bringing in a study session, consideration, council makes a citywide decision. I mean, it's a small town. There's a lot of people that are going to get affected, so it really should be a council decision. Before I turn it back over to you, Mayor, what we're doing today, is that going to include also the limited parking area on 12th Street between F and that alleyway? Because that street's kind of small. And if it's not, then you're still gonna have that problem by the DES and the barber shop, which has not been addressed by way of direction here this evening. So you might wanna think that over. I don't know if we can get Chief Fullen to let us know, but I don't think there's enough room for the parallel parking on that street.
I'll actually probably defer that to Mr. Gardner, but I can tell you that, we did have angled parking in that area, and it was limited to one side of the street. It was angled parking on the south side of the street, and the north side, was painted red with parking, because of the, limited width of the roadway.
Is that something that we can still do, that we can implement?
Revert back to the way it was, yes.
And would that, diffuse some of the confusion that's ongoing with that specific area, Ms. Flores?
I'm not sure I can answer that question. I think that'd be more appropriate for Mr. Gardner, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, members of council, I believe what that would do is it would simply take the number of parking spaces on the north side and the south side and shift them all to the south side. It wouldn't really change anything. That street is not wide enough for angled parking on both sides. It's either parallel on both sides or angled on one. The only reason we usually have it is we have those additional travel lanes, current travel lanes that we can work with. So I don't believe shifting the parking configuration on that street would have any impact on that issue.
Unless you do it one way.
Unless you did it one way, and then you could add more parking.
Mr. Mayor, if I can, sort of comment, at this point, we're gonna bring it up, right? I mean, it's something that we have to bring up. If we're gonna bring it up next month, can we, I don't know if we can direct administration, since this is a work session, but, to talk to those businesses, see, because I feel uncomfortable making a decision without getting their input before having a vote, either changing it back to how it used to be or going one-way street. I'd like to get their opinions without, too much emotion involved, because if we're gonna vote on, those businesses might come and get upset, sort of catch them when they're calm, give them all, all these different suggestions and see where we can meet halfway with all of them.
One suggestion there is to meter the parking where it is limited and leave it unmetered where it's not. Again, the limited parking areas, the ones we're talking about in particular, the taxis, DES and the barbershop are kind of sticky wickets, and I haven't seen a good solution to any of those yet. I've seen least bad solutions. So we're still working on finding better solutions to those, but I like the idea if we can get all of the players to the table and have a calm conversation, we may be able to find an answer that works for everybody. But I know that one, the DES one was caused when the city sold lots of Chiricahua, which took away some public parking, which again shifts the cars that were there, shifts, and you get these cascading shifts. So that's the other thing we do have to be aware of any time we're doing limited parking. If you're going to push some vehicles somewhere else, we need to figure out where they're going to go, and is it really important? And I think we may have had a little bit of oversight on this particular issue when that happened. So now we're going to try to fix it. I just don't have a good answer for you today.
Is that area also included in the downtown revitalization plan? I don't remember that specific area being included in that.
Don't believe it goes quite that far north.
Right. So, right. So, then my question is, could we focus on the reconfiguration of G Avenue, in particular to what we discussed earlier in the presentation, and then get these players, because they're not in conjunction to where we are referring to G Avenue, and then we can get a discussion and figure out how can we collectively decide the best course of method to address this parking issue. Is that something that we can do, Mr. Flores, where we can put a resolution together to then execute the consensus of council in the January meeting, where we can reconfigure Blueberry, Mrs. Kramer, Pep-Tech, that area there, and then we can start implementing these things.
That would seem very appropriate.
Council? Yeah.
Well, I still like to see a traffic study to make sure that we're not interrupting the normal flow.
Okay. So there's unanimous consensus here with a traffic study. So that's what we'll do. Would you be able to provide the traffic study for the council, and then we'll have that for the council meeting in January?
If the data is readily available, yes. If not, it may have to push a month while we get the traffic
No
counts.
problem.
But absolutely, we will get traffic counts both north and south to determine, if there's a big traffic change there. We do need to continue those 2 lanes to the north. I would be shocked from a professional point of view if that's the case, but absolutely.
Oh, thank you. I want to make sure that anything we're discussing now is not going to end up being a hindrance in the future.
Sure. And just to make sure, I just want to make sure that we are talking about a resolution and not an ordinance where we are going to, once it's approved, if it's approved by council, then action is going to be taken to reconfigure the parking on G Avenue, correct?
Correct. That is correct, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I hope I wasn't the only one that got a little bit confused. Are you going to want the traffic study before we move forward?
No, there's a strong concession here that we're going to move forward with the parking. But Mr. Lindeman is asking for a traffic study. If that's available, fantastic. But for me, in the meantime, there is a support for this reconfiguration of our position.
Very well, Mr. Mayor, I think that's very appropriate. So we're talking about the reconfiguration of the parallel parking from 10th Street up to 12th Street?
Yes, that's correct.
And with reference to the Gadsden, I take it you want to leave some parallel parking for loading?
Correct. Yes.
And so that street's going to be like a hybrid, some parallel and some angle?
Well, right. This is going to be designated for the Gadsden Hotel for them to unload.
Temporary unloading zone.
And I would like to just answer your question, Mr. Mayor. The resolution would be appropriate. I don't see this as a concept that's going to require an ordinance.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I can mention, I know you mentioned from 12th Street, can we move it up to 13th Street? Because the one that reached out to me that was really hurting with the business was DeBoer. Because the other business is parked in front of his and he has really nowhere else. So if we could just move it to 13th.
I understood the 3 months, yes.
And so that would be also covering the Mexican consulate, the deletion.
So then do them all.
Let's do them all. That's what I understood, this was shifting that all the way up.
Yeah, 14th,
Thank you, Mr. Carson.
Thank you.
Okay. Chief, thank you. May I have a motion to adjourn?
make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Shelton, second by Councilmember Grijalva. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. And we'll be back at 5:45 for the public hearing, correct? All right. Fast and quick.